The engine has been running since 3 in the morning. Outside, the temperature is -44. The road ahead leads to the Arctic Ocean. The cargo still needs to move. This is the Inuvik Tuktoyaktuk Highway, 137 kilometers of all-season road running north from Inuvik across the Mackenzie Delta to the Arctic Ocean shore. It opened in November 2017. Before that, Tuktoyaktuk had no permanent land connection to the rest of Canada. The community waited for this road for decades. The truck running this road right now is a Peterbilt 389 tractor-trailer. It is carrying groceries, fuel additives, hardware supplies, and medical equipment for Tuktoyaktuk. Total payload 24 tons. The Peterbilt runs a Cummins X15 engine, 565 horsepower. In -44, the engine management system works harder than it was ever designed to. Cold diesel does not combust cleanly. The system compensates. The highway is built entirely on permafrost. This is not incidental. It defines every engineering decision the road required. Permafrost does not behave like conventional ground. It is frozen. It moves. Engineers built the road on a gravel berm elevated above the tundra surface. The elevation isolates the permafrost from vehicle heat. Without it, the road would sink into the ground beneath itself. Before this highway existed, Tuktoyaktuk received supplies 2 ways, by a seasonal ice road in winter and by small aircraft year-round. Both were expensive, both had weight limits, neither was reliable. Tuktoyaktuk. Population approximately 900, predominantly Inuvik. On the shore of the Beaufort Sea. The most northerly community in Canada, accessible by all-season road. The driver departed Inuvik at 3:30 in the morning. The town of Inuvik sits at kilometer 0. By the time the sun appears, or if it appears, he will be close to Tuktoyaktuk. The road surface is asphalt overlaid on gravel. In deep winter, the asphalt becomes hard as stone. In summer, the permafrost beneath can soften and cause differential settlement. The road is monitored continuously. The tundra on both sides of the highway is open. No trees, no shelter. The wind comes from the north without obstruction across the Mackenzie Delta. The truck is the only object it meets. The highway crosses the Mackenzie Delta, one of the largest river deltas in North America. In winter, the delta is a frozen maze of channels. The road threads between them on elevated berms. The road cost approximately 300 million Canadian dollars to build. That is approximately $2 million per kilometre. No private company funded this. The federal and territorial governments built it as essential public infrastructure. The argument for building it was not purely economic. It was about sovereignty, about connection, about the right of a community to be linked to the country it belongs to by something more permanent than ice. The driver's name is not given here. He is one of a small number of licensed operators running this route commercially. He has driven the ITH in every season. He prefers winter. In winter, the road surface is predictable, hard, cold, consistent. In summer, the permafrost beneath the berm can produce differential settling, soft patches, and road surface failures that appear without warning. The headlights sweep the tundra, nothing moves. The ptarmigan are buried in snow somewhere in the white. The wolves, if any are near, are invisible. The truck is the only moving thing for kilometers. The highway passes through the Mackenzie Delta's Pingo country. Pingos, ice-cored hills that push up from the permafrost, are scattered across the landscape like frozen monuments. No other place on Earth has more of them. The largest pingo in the world is visible from a section of this road. Inuvik Pingo stands 49 meters high and is still growing. It has been growing for approximately 1,000 years. The road has no shoulders in the conventional sense. The berm drops directly to the tundra surface. There is no recovery space for a truck that strays from the lane. The driver knows this. The lane is where he stays. The wind at kilometer 60 increases to 70 kilometers per hour. The empty trailer on the southbound truck behind would be in trouble right now. This trailer is loaded. The weight helps, but it is still a sail. Blowing snow reduces visibility to 200 meters. The driver reduces speed to 50. He does not stop. Stopping on this road in this wind means getting stuck in a drift within minutes. Moving is safer. The satellite communicator on the dash shows a green indicator. The trucking company in Inuvik can see the truck's position every 2 minutes. In this environment, that signal is the primary safety measure. There are no fuel stations between Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk. The truck carries enough fuel for the 137-kilometer run, plus a significant reserve. Running out of fuel here is not an option, it is a death risk. The road crosses several small lakes and ponds on elevated berms. The ice beneath the berm in winter is effectively part of the foundation. When that ice melts, the road can shift. This happens every thaw season. The highway is maintained year-round by the government of Northwest Territories. A road crew based in Inuvik responds to reported issues and conducts regular patrols. In winter, the crew clears snowdrifts and checks surface conditions after storms. The cost of goods in Tuktoyaktuk dropped after the highway opened. Before 2017, everything that arrived by ice road or aircraft carried a freight premium that made basic necessities significantly more expensive than in southern Canada. The ITH also brings construction materials to Tuktoyaktuk: lumber, steel roofing components, insulation panels. The highway has enabled a modest building boom, the first major construction activity in decades, driven by accessible road freight. Before the highway, the cost of building a house in Tuktoyaktuk was extraordinarily high because every piece of material had to be flown in or barged in during the summer. The highway changed the equation permanently. The return trip south begins at noon. The sun is already descending. By 2:30, it will be below the horizon again. The driver does not linger. He has done what he came to do. The road back is the same road. The Inuvik Tuktoyaktuk Highway is one of only 3 all-season roads that cross the Arctic Circle in North America. The other 2 are in Alaska. In Canada, this is the only one. Its existence is singular. The Dempster Highway terminates in Inuvik at kilometer 736. The ITH begins where the Dempster ends. Together, they form an unbroken road corridor from the Yukon border to the Arctic Ocean, a distance of approximately 900 kilometers. Climate change poses the most significant long-term threat to the ITH. Warming temperatures soften permafrost. Softer permafrost causes road settlement. More intensive road maintenance is required as every year the warm season lengthens. Engineers embedded temperature sensors in the highway embankment at regular intervals when it was built. The sensors transmit real-time data on permafrost temperatures at multiple depths. The data is used to predict maintenance needs and flag subsidence risk before failures occur. The permafrost beneath the ITH dates back to the last ice age. It has been frozen for 10,000 years. The road represents the first sustained thermal disturbance this ground has experienced in its entire frozen history. The Inuvik people have lived in this region for at least 1,000 years. They navigated the Mackenzie Delta, the Beaufort Sea, and the tundra before any road existed. The highway did not bring human activity to this land, it followed it. The Inuvik Regional Corporation was involved in the environmental assessments and planning process for the highway. The road crosses traditional territory and required consultation. It was built with community consent, not without negotiation, but with it. The community of Tuktoyaktuk has embraced the highway for practical reasons. Fuel costs are down, food costs are down. It is easier to move a sick person to Inuvik for medical care. It is easier for families separated by distance to visit. The highway has also brought changes that are not universally welcomed: increased vehicle traffic, more outsiders arriving year-round, questions about development, resource extraction, and what permanent road access ultimately means for a community that was previously defined partly by its isolation. The highway also brought tourism. Tuktoyaktuk is now a destination accessible by road. Visitors drive the ITH in summer to reach the Arctic Ocean, to dip their feet in the Beaufort Sea and say they have driven to the top of Canada. In winter, the tourists are gone. The road belongs to the trucks. The Peterbilt passes not a single other vehicle in the first 40 kilometers south of Tuktoyaktuk. The highway returns to its fundamental purpose. The road passes kilometer 100 on the return. The tundra is unchanged from this morning. The pingos stand exactly where they stood at dawn. Cold has no interest in time. The landscape has been the same way for 10,000 years. The return load is not empty. Tuktoyaktuk sent back a pallet of frozen Arctic char for a restaurant in Inuvik. The highway works both ways. In the north, resources also flow south, not just supplies north. The ITH also handles emergency evacuations. When a medical emergency cannot be managed in Tuktoyaktuk, a patient can now be transported by truck or ambulance to Inuvik Regional Hospital in approximately 2 hours. Before 2017, the only option was air. The highway also carries heavy equipment for the resource exploration sector. Seismic exploration rigs, drilling support equipment, and survey vehicles move north on the ITH to support work in the Mackenzie Delta and the offshore Beaufort Sea. The Beaufort Sea holds significant potential hydrocarbon reserves. The question of whether those reserves will ever be developed, and under what terms, is a long, unresolved conversation involving energy companies, federal and territorial governments, and the Inuvik. The truck that will carry seismic drilling equipment north tomorrow is not a Peterbilt 389. It is a heavy-haul configuration, a Kenworth T88, with a low-bed trailer, escort vehicles, and an oversized load permit. Different truck, same road. The highway accommodates both. The ITH was designed with heavy loads in mind. Its base compaction specifications exceed what would be required for a standard provincial highway. The permafrost engineers built in load-bearing capacity for industrial freight, anticipating the day when this road would carry more than just groceries. The road sits at the intersection of multiple competing futures, a future where climate change makes its maintenance increasingly expensive and eventually untenable, a future where resource development demands it carry loads that test its engineering limits, a future where the community it serves simply needs it to keep the shelves stocked. Whatever those futures bring, the truck runs today. The load is today's concern. The road is today's road. The driver is not solving the large questions. He is managing the small ones: tire pressure, gear selection, wind correction, fuel reserve. The ITH also represents Canada's highway system, reaching its furthest northern extent on the continent's western side. Beyond Tuktoyaktuk, there is no road. The Beaufort Sea begins. The paved world ends here. The highway's opening also closed a chapter for the seasonal ice road that preceded it. That ice road ran for decades across frozen lakes and tundra between Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk every winter. It was imperfect, it was seasonal, but it worked, and the people who drove it knew it well. The drivers who drove the old ice road and now drive the ITH speak about the difference with a certain ambivalence. The highway is better in almost every measurable way, but the ice road had a quality that is harder to name, something about the directness of the relationship between the driver, the cold, and the route. The ITH crosses the Arctic Circle at approximately kilometre 80. The moment of crossing is unmarked on this road, no sign, no ceremony. In winter, the crossing is just another kilometre of tundra. Only the GPS coordinates know the difference. The first winter of ITH operation, 2017 to 2018, tested the road in ways the planners had not fully anticipated. A warm spell in February caused surface deformation in 3 sections. Repairs required temporary closures. The road has been improved steadily since then. The road maintenance budget for the ITH is substantially higher per kilometre than for equivalent southern highways. This is expected. Arctic infrastructure costs more to build and more to maintain. The question for the government is always whether the cost is justified by the benefit. The community of Tuktoyaktuk is the answer. The road runs past the site of what was once Kittigazuit, an ancient Inuvialuit summer gathering place that dates back 3,000 years. The site is now protected as a National Historic Site of Canada. The highway approaches it but does not disturb it. The road was designed to pass respectfully. The stretch of highway between kilometre 40 and kilometre 70 crosses the highest concentration of thermokarst lakes in the Canadian Arctic. These are lakes formed by permafrost thaw. Their presence on both sides of the road is both beautiful and ominous, beauty and climate signal in the same frame. The highway is silent except for the truck. No other engine, no other sound from the human world. The tundra around it is silent. The cold is silent. The truck makes the only noise, and even that noise is small against the scale of the place. There are roughly 2,000 commercial truck trips on the ITH per year. That is approximately 5.5 per day on average. Spread across a 137-kilometre road, 5 vehicles per day is an emptiness that highways elsewhere never know. Every one of those 5.5 daily trucks is essential. There is no redundancy on this route, no alternative road, no parallel supply chain. If a truck does not run, a family in Tuktoyaktuk goes without whatever was on it. The arithmetic of need is very direct here. The northern lights have intensified. They now cover 3/4 of the visible sky. The driver has seen this before and will see it again, but it still registers. Some things do not become ordinary no matter how many times they occur. Inuvik appears in the distance at kilometre 15. The town's lights are visible from this far north. The driver has completed his run. 137 kilometres delivered, 137 kilometres returned, 274 kilometres of Arctic highway in a single day. The truck enters Inuvik at 6:17 in the afternoon. The temperature is -41. The Arctic char is delivered to the restaurant. The Peterbilt parks at the logistics yard. The engine continues to idle. Tomorrow there is another run. Inuvik is the regional hub for Canada's Western Arctic. Population approximately 3,300. It is the largest community north of the 60th parallel in the Western Northwest Territories. Inuvik receives its own supplies via the Dempster Highway from Dawson City, Yukon, 736 kilometers to the south. The supply chain for the Western Arctic is multi-layered. The ITH is its northernmost extension. The logistics depot in Inuvik consolidates freight arriving from the south and organizes it for forward distribution to Tuktoyaktuk and other small communities accessible from the town. The depot is the last sorting point before the Arctic Ocean. The highway was constructed between 2013 and 2017. It required extensive geotechnical investigation, environmental assessment, and indigenous consultation before a single meter of ground was disturbed. The planning phase alone took over a decade. The highway crosses more than 300 culverts and drainage structures. Each one had to be engineered to maintain thermal stability of the permafrost around it, while still allowing adequate water flow during the thaw season. The highway is 2 lanes wide, 7 meters of paved surface. In some sections, the right-of-way width is only 18 meters. Building a wider road would have required removing more permafrost, more thermal risk, more cost, more environmental impact. A second Peterbilt is scheduled to run the ITH tomorrow. It will carry fuel oil for the Tuktoyaktuk heating oil tank farm. Heating fuel is the most critical supply for Arctic communities, more critical than food, because without it, food does not matter. Before the highway, heating oil was delivered to Tuktoyaktuk by barge during the summer open water season. If the summer shipment was insufficient, or if demand exceeded estimates, the community could run short by February. Now the truck can deliver more any week the road is passable. The Inuvik Tuktoyaktuk Highway is not just a supply road, it is a fishing export corridor, a medical evacuation route, a family connection, a construction material pipeline, a tourism artery. One road performing the function of everything that was missing. The wind picks up again at kilometer 70 on the return. The driver has already positioned both hands on the wheel. He anticipated it. This section always does this. He has learned the road's habits. They are reliable even when the conditions are not. The Peterbilt transmission is an Eaton-Fuller 18-speed manual. On the flat tundra sections, the driver runs 8th gear. In the crosswind sections, he drops to 6th, lower gear, more control, less susceptibility to lateral push. Gear management is wind management here. The northern lights appear as the truck passes kilometer 50. The driver notices he does not stop for photographs. He is southbound on schedule with Arctic char to deliver to a restaurant. But he watches, anyone would. The aurora here is not the same aurora seen from cities. No light pollution, no competing brightness. It fills the sky completely. Curtains of green and white and occasionally pink rolling across the black from horizon to horizon. Inuvik appears in the distance at kilometer 15. The town's lights are visible from this far north. The driver has completed his run. 137 kilometers delivered, 137 kilometers returned, 274 kilometers of Arctic highway in a single day. The Peterbilt 389 parks at the Inuvik logistics yard. The engine drops to its overnight idle. The temperature outside is -42. By morning, it will be -47. The truck is prepared for this. So is the driver, so is the road. Tomorrow begins the same way today began. This is the Inuvik Tuktoyaktuk Highway, the world's northernmost all-season public road, built on frozen ground across a frozen delta to an Arctic Ocean community that waited for it for generations. The truck runs it, the community depends on it, the cold makes the running difficult, the need makes it necessary. Another truck is being loaded in Inuvik right now, another driver is reviewing the manifest, another engine is running to stay warm before departure. The ITH does not sleep between runs, it simply waits for the next one. The road will be here in February when the cold deepens past -50. It will be here in July when the tundra thaws and the sun barely sets. It will be here when the drivers change and the trucks are replaced and the manifests carry different items. The road outlasts everyone who uses it. The Peterbilt 389 parks at the Inuvik logistics yard. The engine drops to its overnight idle. The temperature outside is -42. By morning, it will be -47. The truck is prepared for this. So is the driver. So is the road. Tomorrow begins the same way today began. Tomorrow the depot opens at 6. The manifest for the next northbound run will be ready. By 7, the driver will do his pre-trip. By 8, by 9, the Peterbilt will be on the ITH, heading north, carrying what Tuktoyaktuk needs for the week ahead. The next driver to run this route after today is a woman who has been operating on the ITH since its second year. She drove the old ice road before that. She knows both versions of this connection. She prefers the one with pavement. After her, there is another driver, and after that one, another. The ITH operates on a rotation. The route is always covered. Tuktoyaktuk is never without a scheduled delivery. The system does not permit gaps. The ITH is short by highway standards, 137 kilometers. But its impact is not measured in kilometers. It is measured in the lives of the 900 people at its northern end, for whom the road changed everything. The truck is 15 kilometers from Inuvik. The tundra gives way to the first scattered spruce, stunted, wind-shaped, barely a meter tall. Signs of the tree line. Signs of latitude's mercy as the terrain shifts almost imperceptibly southward. Inuvik's streetlights are visible now. The town appears as a warm cluster against the cold dark. After 137 kilometers of tundra, it looks like civilization feels. The driver is almost home, not his home, the road's home end. The Peterbilt enters Inuvik. The highway ends at a T-intersection with Mackenzie Road. The truck turns. The ITH is behind it. The run is complete. The numbers on the odometer represent a day's work that connected an Arctic Ocean community to the rest of Canada. The Inuvik Tuktoyaktuk Highway is 7 years old. In those 7 years, it has changed Tuktoyaktuk more than the previous 40 years of ice road and aircraft access combined. The compound effect of reliable road access on a community that lacked it is difficult to overstate. The highway will be here next week and next month and decades from now. Assuming the permafrost cooperation that its engineers designed for holds against the warming that the climate scientists describe. The road's future is uncertain. Its present is essential. In a community 900 people strong at the edge of the Arctic Ocean, the arrival of the truck is not an event. It is a routine, the most important kind of routine, the kind that maintains life in a place that does not easily permit it. And yet it runs every day, in every season, in conditions that would close highways elsewhere. It runs because a community at the end of it needs it to run. That is sufficient justification for everything it requires. The road does not end at Tuktoyaktuk. Another engine will start before dawn. Another load will be placed on another trailer. Another driver will ease onto the ITH heading north through the dark toward the Beaufort Sea. The community will receive what it needs. The cold will remain. The distance will remain. This work continues.